Hello and welcome to Procrastination Station. Procrastination as in procrastinating and that other thing that we all do. If you can put it together, then you're my people, and if you can't, perhaps click that next button. No shade. I'm your host, Hannah, and I'm here to talk about self-sabotage in a way that invites all parts of us to come along for the journey. I'm here to lay out the setbacks and superpowers of self-sabotage in order to manage our limitations. Throughout the show, we'll discuss designing a life that works in your favor through sustainable creative practices. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope you enjoyed today's topic. Hello and welcome. I have something so special for you guys today. I have my friend here, Brandon. He's the owner of a new app that's really great. I'm going to give him a second to tell you about that. Today with our topic, we're going to be talking about self-talk. So we all have an internal narrative within our minds. Sometimes it can be pretty mean and dark, and then other times it can really propel you towards the life of your dreams. So with this topic, we're really going to debate both sides of that coin. And with that being said, I would love to have Brandon here introduce himself and what he does.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brandon. I'm co-founder and owner of a wellness company called AVRA. We created this to basically promote our unique mission and vision around creating a positive mindset and positive living as well. One of our key beliefs is that self-improvement, development, and growth should always be attainable, and it doesn't have to cost you an arm or a leg like the industry likes to make it believe.
Yep.
Another thing is we focus on spreading that awareness through positivity with our app AVRA Core. It's a simple affirmation app. Also, in a few other ways through our blog and newsletter.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So you say AVRA is an affirmation app. What does that look like for anybody who might want to check that out? By the way, I use it myself and it's really great, but I'd just love to hear you describe it.
We were actually in the market for this type of app. We were looking for one that would basically give us all the powers to write exactly what we wanted and set the times where we would want to receive it, and just no gimmicks, because like we tried out a couple competitors like ThinkUp, and the first thing they want you to do is put in your credit card, sign up for the trial, and then you can get access to their platform.
Yeah.
But we wanted to go to the opposite way, where we didn't really like those things. So yeah, we couldn't find what we were looking for, so we went and built it ourselves.
Yeah, I love that. That's the story of so many entrepreneurs, is to solve a problem in the marketplace that you're facing yourself. I really love the concept too. Like, I have used I Am before, and honestly, like, it gets to a point where I'm like, these are annoying to see on my phone all the time. Like, I have the free version, and it would just be like the same affirmation all the time, and it would be something that I don't necessarily need to tell myself, or that I don't really just like need affirmed at this time. So I really love your platform because it is customizable, so that when I get notifications, it's like getting notifications for myself. Like, let's say in the evening before bed, I'm feeling pretty good, this was a good day, but I know tomorrow morning, in the mornings, I just kind of feel like crap. I can write myself an affirmation and be like, hey, you killed it yesterday, you can do this. Like, you don't need to feel like crap about yourself, or if you do, just be gentle. Like, I can use the nuanced language that I like to use with myself and not have to rely on just like some corporate whoever to write all my affirmations for me. The customizability of your app is actually my favorite factor that differentiates it from the other platforms that are like it. So yeah, if anybody's in the market for wanting to take their mental health into their own hands, to be able to work on their self-talk, before we even get into the topic of self-talk deeper today, I highly recommend checking out this app. It's a new app. It's developed by two people local in Toronto, and it's just like, I think that any type of tool like that is really great to have in your arsenal for just mental well-being. All that being said, that's super duper great. Let's get into our topic. So today we're talking about self-talk. My personal interest in self-talk, I am not the same person that I was when I was younger, and I think lots of people say that. When I was younger, I really, really sought out to please other people. I always wanted to be like their favorite employee, their favorite student. Like, I just wanted to be the best at everything that I did, and that's a great goal to have. But realistically, when you're having all of this pressure that you're putting on yourself to, be the best that you can be, whenever you do happen to have those human moments where you fall short, or where you're just not the best you could be today, and that is so human, that happens, then you can really, really beat yourself up, like astronomically beyond what anybody else might be thinking about how you may have dropped the ball. Like, let's say you were late that day and you're like, I'm the worst person and I don't deserve food tonight. And then like your boss is like, yo, just chill. It's not the end of the world. Maybe like try not to be late, but you know, we can work on this. So to me, self-talk, that's really what that's about. It's a matter of treating your inner child the way that it needed to be treated throughout your life, and then also training your inner parent to talk to you in a way that actually makes you want to do the things that you're expecting of yourself, rather than feeling like you need to go down this hole of self-sabotage. I would love to know your take on self-talk, Brandon. What leads you to this type of conversation?
Sort of what drew me to the topic of self-talk is that I had seen such a profound transformation in my own life just by changing the way I talk to myself. So, and you already know, 5 years ago, I was arrested. I was in courts. I was facing multiple years in prison. And the way I talked to myself at the time was, oh, why'd I go and do that? Why did you make that mistake? Why did you do that thing that led to all these other things?
Saying to yourself, like, you know better, kind of.
Exactly.
Thing. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, oh, I'm so stupid. I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Those were the things that were constantly going through my mind, even subconsciously, and I wouldn't even notice that I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of backwards from what traditional immigrant families teach you growing up. But as the children of immigrants, when it comes to healing from within, addressing trauma, becoming your own person, and even just becoming the best version of yourself, it's not really a topic that we do too much. We're more about resilience, hard work, and perseverance. The main thing that drew me to the topic would have to be literally the fact that you can change your life, and it all starts with yourself. It starts with how you think about yourself, and then that leads into, hey, I have an awareness now. And you catch yourself thinking those things. And then from there, it turns into action. Hey, let me try something different. Let me maybe not say that, or say something different, actively looking for those opportunities where you catch yourself. And then through that action, it will, the thoughts turn to actions, the actions turn to events that happen in your life. And through those events, you change the course of your life.
Yeah, I really, really love that so much, because I feel like in any situation where life hands you something that's really hard to handle, it can be super easy to look at that thing in your life and be like, that's why I'm unhappy. This external thing in my life is causing me to talk down about myself or to not feel the best about myself. And it sounds like, just from listening to you so far, that you took this terrible situation and turned it into an opportunity for yourself to look inwards and be like, well, how did I even end up here? Because I do know better and I do, you know, make better choices in other areas of my life, but how did I end up in the court system? And I just really want to touch on something you said about like your family growing up having the values of like working hard and resilience and stuff like that. And like, I've never been in the court system myself, but I do watch a lot of true crime, and I know that being in the court system is so heavy. It's hard, it's difficult, like, and you're not necessarily working, like, you can't work your way hard out of court. Like, it's a matter of just pitching your case and having a lawyer pitching your case for you, and then hopefully the court decides that you deserve mercy. But you can't work hard for that. You just have to really hope and believe that you don't deserve the worst case scenario. And I just think that it's really, really admirable the way that you have been able to take this low point in your life and work on shifting it to hopefully serve you in the future, rather than feel like this hindrance on your timeline where it's a dark time. It can maybe be something that you draw experience from, to learn from. And I just think that's really great. I think that there's not much anybody can say about that situation. I think that it's very personal to you, but I also think that that's something that you can teach people about that you can show people, like, you can come from this point in your life and grow beyond it, and develop to be a person that speaks to themselves kindly. I just think that's really cool.
I love that you mentioned that. I didn't actually even expect to be really talking about it.
Yeah, and I, like,
While we're talking about it,
real quick,
some
if you
good
want me
feelings are
to
coming
take that
up.
out of the episode, I'm more than happy to do so, because that is like your personal information.
Yeah.
Are you okay with having that in the episode?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I just wanted to also add on to the fact, like, I love how you mentioned it's it, when you were talking about the court system in general, and I agree with you there, where it's one of those things where, it's such a major event in your life, and it's going to affect the course of your life.
Of course.
But it's one of those things where if you're in that seat, you have no control over it, really. You're living in the past, waiting for a verdict in the future
Mm-hmm.
from someone who you cannot affect or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it really puts into perspective, like, I guess, makes you feel like small and sort of,
Like you're in limbo, like you're at
yeah.
sea without a lifeline, like no connection to shore. I can feel that, and that's, I feel like, terrifying. And especially looking back now, we're Canadians, so in our country weed is legal, but I'm assuming at the time it wasn't.
Yeah.
And like, even reflecting back on that, it's like just even the matter of like how perceptions change over the course of, let's say, a decade around these things that we were so hard against not so long ago. But yeah, let's get a little bit deeper into this topic, if you're okay with moving on.
Sure. Yeah.
We can draw on that a little bit if you'd like within our topics. But anyway, so to move on to self-talk and self-sabotage. In what ways does self-talk improve lifestyle and multiple dimensions of our well-being? So how is it that when we talk nicely to ourselves, we can also be physically healthier? On a side note, in terms of the ways self-talk can make us physically healthier, I'd like to mention the impact of chronic stress on the body. Stress at its basic level is a spike in cortisol in the body due to a real or perceived threat. This is the function within the body to prepare us for lions, tigers, and bears in the wild. Stress prepares our body for fight, flight, and freeze responses by pumping blood into the muscles and increasing our blood sugar, which builds our energy so that we can take action to survive. While doing this, the body is conserving energy in its processes such as digestion and immune function. Survival comes first in your body's hierarchy of needs, and when this stress becomes chronic, our body's systems become either delayed or hyperactive. This can lead to compromised immune systems, leaky gut, unknown allergies to appear, insomnia, impulsive reactions, cancer, and honestly, so much more. I will mention, I am not a doctor, and this is based on my personal belief and research regarding stress and not medical advice whatsoever. Don't listen to me if you disagree. When I was chronically stressed, my body was chronically sick. I know that to be a fact. I would go get medical tests, and they always came back anatomically normal, but I was still in so much pain because of this stress. In terms of the way positive self-talk can help you become physically healthier, it allows you to slow down your nervous system response to minor and possibly imagined stressful stimuli. Someone with a negative internal dialogue may get overly irritable with traffic and develop chronic stress. As for someone who adopts a positive approach, it's not that they don't get irritated by waiting in traffic, but they know how to divert their attention to something more positive, like music, to distract them from the temporary and not life-threatening discomfort. Being stressed because of something small like traffic might not seem like a big deal in one dose, but when you're angry about your commute every time you drive to and from work, it takes a much larger toll on the body than you might imagine. You may come home still carrying this physical stress energy that's built up within you, and then you might start sparking fights with your partner if you don't find a release for that stress. To me, this is why constantly nurturing my mind is just so important to me. It's not so much that positive self-talk can improve your health in the same sense as a healthy diet and exercise can, and I don't want to mislead anyone to think that it's possible to positivity your way out of a life-altering diagnosis, but it helps you become healthier in the sense that your systems are less likely to send warning signs and signals that aren't necessary and can save the survival mechanism for when you're truly in a state when you need to survive. I like to think of positive self-talk more as a preventative measure. Back to the episode.
Yeah. So I have four pillars that I feel self-talk improves in my well-being. So number one is positive mindset. So that's like what we talked about so far with, just treating yourself better. And because that is sort of, to me, that's the first step. And then that step extends into using that positivity, even in the face of challenging situations or adversity,
Right.
rather reframing those thoughts from, oh, I can't do it. I'm not qualified enough to, I'm getting the skills to accomplish this task or something like that.
Yeah.
Just that little reframing can change the events you do towards how you feel about that certain thing.
Yeah. What are the four pillars that you mentioned that
Yeah. So the first one was positive mindset. The
right?
second is motivation and goal setting. So that gives you the drive and the desire to stay focused and dedicated to what you want to give yourself, as well as it lets you really fine tune and think about deeply what you want to pursue. Third is self confidence. So that's counteracting negative perceptions, like we talked about imposter syndrome and promoting that confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And fourth would be overall life satisfaction, overall contentment, and how you feel about your place in your own universe.
Yeah. I really, really love that. And I see just from you describing that how that could turn out to be like I just have in my mind that like there can be somebody out there who has this narrative in their head that they can't work out, that they don't look good in clothes, and that like just they don't like their body. And then by working on the self-talk thing, finding even one thing about yourself that you like, even if it's your kneecaps that day, just like my body gets me from point A to point B and I like her. And then like starting from that point zero of like not liking what you see at all and then trying to find little things that you do like about your body that can then motivate you to set different health goals for yourself. And like this even like honestly, like I'm speaking a little cryptically, but this is literally about me. When I started to shift my mindset around the way that I felt about how I looked, I was then able to prioritize my health in a different way because I was now under the mindset of this is my body for the rest of my life and she deserves to be healthy and I want her to be healthy. And that allows me to make decisions for myself, for my health, for my well-being that are more aligned with my future rather than I don't like what I see, so I'm just going to numb and medicate what I don't like rather than trying to do whatever it is possible that I can to change it.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I think that like that's honestly when I wrote that question, that's really what I was thinking about is like how does self-talk help somebody who's like not healthy in their life? So that moves me perfectly into my next question of how do we start improving our self-talk even if we're at like ground zero? Absolutely no good self-talk.
Mm-hmm. So I actually created a little sort of check cycle that I originally created for changing habits because that's what I originally used AVRA Core for, as well as improving my self talk. I wanted to use it to reinforce habits that I wanted to teach myself or skills I wanted to learn. Just so mentally I would be aware of it, verbally I would be speaking it, I'd be bringing it into my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the cycle looks something like number one is awareness, recognizing, acknowledging your negative self talk or behavior. Also, pay attention to your reactions that you have from it and the impact it has on your emotions. These feelings are all important because the second step is reflection. For me, it's all about self compassion, understanding, letting yourself be vulnerable to yourself and really being truthful. It's also an opportunity to ask yourself if you say, I can't do this, I'm not qualified enough. I'll ask myself, why do I think that? Am I
Mm-hmm.
lacking something that makes me think that? 9 times out of 10, it comes down to either belief in yourself or training. And if
Yeah.
you need the training, seek out the training, obtain the skills, and then boom, you're qualified. It's suddenly shifted. And if it falls into belief, dig deeper, find out why you don't believe in yourself. And these questions will lead you to answers you wouldn't have considered before.
Yeah.
And then to round it out, take all those things from the reflection and the awareness and take action. Actively moderate your self-talk or behavior with your reflections in mind. Instead of saying, I can't do that, I'm not qualified enough, I would say, I'm improving the skills I need to be successful at blank.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, something that really came to mind when you were explaining that is like the hang up on qualifications. This is a little bit of a tangent, but when it comes to qualifications, I feel like a lot of people get hung up on the idea that they have to be an expert before they even start.
Absolutely.
But I think the reality is you build confidence by obtaining the skills and you become an expert. I don't even know if I believe in the word expert, but you become qualified by like seeking the skills that are required to do the thing. Like, let's say for myself, being in marketing, there's lots of like coaching involved with what I do. And with that, like, I have my qualifications from school. Of course, I know that qualifications are necessary. And by saying all of this, I would never suggest somebody like go out to be a doctor before you're qualified. Like, obviously there's exceptions to that rule, but I just believe, like, for myself being an entrepreneur, when I started, I was like, I can't do that. That's so big. Like, that's like a huge thing, and I'm just little me. And then I started doing the thing, and by all means, I screwed up a lot, and I still screw up a lot. Like, it's not like it's not like I'm a quote unquote expert at being an entrepreneur. However, I become so much more confident in my abilities the longer that I do it because I'm just doing it. If I was sitting there saying like, oh, I'm not going to start until I feel like I know what it's like to be an entrepreneur, you're never going to know until you actually go out and let yourself know.
Absolutely. Even right now, when you said you're making mistakes, that's everyone makes mistakes every single day. No one's perfect, and it's impossible to hold yourself to that standard. It's also give yourself some credit that you're in a stage where you have the skill now, and every day you work at it and you're out there doing it, you're honing those skills, improving them, refining them, changing them better than yesterday. So give yourself some credit in that sense.
No, thank you. I feel like if there's one thing that we can both remind ourselves sometimes is like, even when you make a mistake, you can, like, as long as you're, you know, aware enough of yourself to be able to recognize that mistake, then moving forward, you can draw on the experiences of making that mistake to either avoid it, to fix new mistakes in the future. Like, making mistakes is so good for you. And I feel like that's something that I know in my head, where I'm like, to other people, I'm like, you're allowed to make mistakes. Everybody does. But then to myself, I'm like, oh, gasp. You made a mistake.
How could this happen?
Right? For our next question here, I actually have a bit of a trick question. Can self-talk cure self-sabotage? Do you have an idea on that?
Yeah. So for me, I think self-talk might not be able to cure self-sabotage, but I think it can help you get to the root of the problem.
Agreed.
And by acknowledging that you're worth it, and the person can find closure and respite in that, and really through that work through whatever the root is and lead them to a greener pasture, I think.
Yeah, I really love that. And thank you for not saying like, yeah, it'll cure everything, because it won't. I believe that as human beings, we just naturally self-sabotage, and we all always will. So if you're a procrastinator, you're probably always going to procrastinate a little bit. If you're a perfectionist, you might always be a bit of a perfectionist. And that's okay. But I think that what you were getting at as well is with self-talk, you can then become more hyper aware of these things. Like, let's say, like, I'm always looking at my life to be like, you know, like, my friendships never work out, my jobs never work out, and then like I'm always putting the blame on the external. But then with thinking about self-talk and talking about self-talk and these things, like, when you draw your attention inwards instead of putting the blame on everything outside, you can then look at yourself and be like, oh, maybe I get really, really comfortable when I have full control, but then when I have full control, the people in my life have no control, and that's why it never works out. And then thinking about this topic of control, you can then allow yourself to let go of control sometimes in your relationships, but then also communicate like, sometimes I need control and I act this way when I don't feel like I have control. And this is what would help me feel like I have more control. And then that can help you in your relationships to be aware of what we all bring to the table. I think that's like the biggest thing that like I wish younger me knew is like, instead of looking for the perfect partner, look at yourself to be the perfect partner. And that doesn't mean you have to be perfect. That just means you need to know what you bring to the table, including your bad side, including your good side. Like just having this well-rounded picture of yourself. And also something else that I want to say is this picture of yourself that you get, it shouldn't live up in the head. It should live in the heart, where in your head you might say like, oh, I make mistakes and that's not a good thing. In your heart, I'm allowed to make mistakes. That's human of me. On another side note, with this mini tangent of mine, I want to mention the idea of self-intellectualization. When I say the idea of yourself should live within your heart rather than your head, what I'm getting at is that it's important to understand our multidimensional nature as humans. An entrepreneur might think to themselves, I'm a leader, a visionary, a perfectionist, and occasionally a control freak. But when they bring this down to their heart, they'll have a deeper understanding of what that actually means. In order to relinquish control or the need for perfection, they need to have trust. Someone who has a need for perfection and control doesn't actually want to be in charge 100% of the time. This is more so born out of necessity, but rather they have an inner belief that things will only be done with a high quality of care if done themselves. And that's not to say that behind closed doors, when they go home to their partner, where there is trust in that relationship, that they don't put down all of these visionary, controlling, perfectionism type of personality traits, and then they have a whole other layer to themselves that needs a little bit of care and a little bit of loving sometimes. Within their heart, it's not that they need to be in control, but rather that things went awry when they didn't have control in the past. In your heart, you know that even when you're in control, things can still go awry. That just happens sometimes. Healing the piece of your heart that was broken during a time in your life when you didn't have control and someone led you astray can allow you to let go of control sometimes. A lot of the time, the idea that we have of ourselves that lives within our head is more like an armor we wear in the external world. Who we are in our hearts involves a lot more soft and squishy vulnerabilities, as well as sacred pieces of our personality that we don't always like to highlight. For example, a piece of my soft and squishy heart that I don't always like to highlight is that I have a deep, deep level of empathy and compassion. I don't always like to share that because the person who says, oh, I'm an empath, they usually really suck at having empathy for other people. I rather prefer to use these as tools more so in action rather than stating them to other people. I would much rather you feel my compassion and feel my empathy than for me to announce them. And for me, this is a really big thing of knowing myself in my heart, allowing people to see me through my actions, and not trying to define myself within my head. If I try to define myself as somebody who's deeply empathetic and compassionate, maybe there will be a point in time where I am not empathetic in that moment and I'm not compassionate in that moment. And I don't want to label myself as deeply compassionate and then go against that. So that's why this is something that lives in my heart rather than in my head, because when we try to put these things into very uniform boxes, a lot of the time when something goes outside of that box, we can feel completely lost in our whole identity. Anyway, tangent over. Let's get back to it. Yeah, did you have anything additional to add on that?
Yeah. Aside from really digging deep and getting into the traumas that specifically affecting that negativity, one thing that I was trying to work on in my journey recently has been building financial abundance, financial wealth for myself and my family, and things like that. So a funny exercise I would do. Oh, I see myself. That thought actually led me into learning about finance, learning more about how the world's money system works, things like that. And that led me into a topic of high consumption lifestyle versus low consumption lifestyle, topics like that. And a funny exercise that I do is if I catch myself, if I'm hyper aware and I catch myself saying in a mindset where, oh, I can't, how can I invest that in that because I won't have it for this. Or if I catch myself thinking about money and lack, or like, oh, I don't have enough, or these types of thoughts, I'll just go, slit my own throat because I'm pretty much destroying all the things that I've learned and thought and all the work that I've put into growing and becoming the person that I want to be, right? Regarding that specific thing. Because I guess through those learnings, I've learned things that are counterintuitive to what I would have previously thought.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's serious, but at the same time, don't be afraid to have fun, joke with it, find things that are positive as well, because at the end of the day, it is for you, and you have your best interest at heart first, right?
Of course. Oh my goodness. Please finish because I'm about to go on a tangent.
No, I'd love to
Okay,
hear your
cool.
tangent.
I love that you say this because even on a past episode that I did with Nasser about overthinking, we talked about how there's aspects to ourselves that they might hinder us in one area of life. They might be a self-sabotage mechanism in one area, but then in another, it serves you so freaking well. Like, let's say, for example, perfectionism. I'm a perfectionist at heart. Like, I love when things look symmetrical and the way that I want them to look. That's fine. That serves me so freaking well in my art, and so freaking well when I'm writing podcast scripts. But when it comes to my personal relationships, that's where it can be like a little like, yo, chill, like we're just cooking chicken, like it doesn't have to be perfect. So like I think that this conversation is just like super powerful because like that's something that I don't know if a lot of people in the mindset sort of industry that take part in mindset culture are really fully aware of. That just because you're a perfectionist or you're a control freak or you're an overthinker, it's not a bad thing. Even though we like to paint it as a picture of like, oh, you shouldn't do that, never procrastinate, that's terrible. Like, it also helps me sometimes.
Yeah, I think a key thing there as well that you touched on is that a lot of people love to jump to the negative aspect of every single thing, but every single thing has a other side of the coin
Yes.
that can work in a completely opposite way of what you're just looking at it for face value.
Yeah, like the yin and yang sign. I actually just did an episode on hope. Hope seems like it's like, oh my God, that's so beautiful and magical and wonderful. But the episode that I did on hope is actually about the downsides and how it can be dangerous in the wrong context. And that was a very nuanced script to write because I want people to be hopeful, but I don't want them to hold on to it too tightly.
Yeah.
Something else that came to mind from this chat has been like these things that we have within us. And even if like you're hearing us talk about, oh, there's a bright side, maybe you don't even see that bright side whatsoever. I would just really love for people to recognize that even if you don't like this quality within you, you have it for a reason. Like if you procrastinate, if you're late all the time, whatever it is, like you started doing that as some type of protection mechanism, survival instinct, like that's a product of your environment. That happens because that's how you were raised or that's just how you felt at the time it served you. Like that's just so human of us. And I think that that's something that within mindset culture we really want to like analyze to death and be like, how can we be the most perfect human beings on the planet? But sometimes it's just a matter of looking at yourself and having that positive self-talk to say like, I made the decisions to get me to where I am today because they brought me to where I am today. I would be somebody completely different if I didn't, let's say, drop out of college or go through the court system. Like whatever that thing is for you, like it allows you to get yourself to your highest potential, even if it's a downside, even if it's something your parents don't love, like it's still part of you. And absolutely. I think that's just so magical.
Yeah, I really like what you said about because that's something I believe in as well. Every decision, you know, one of my first affirmations is everything happens for a reason, and that reason is to assist us. So yeah. I love how you said that because that resonates with me, and as fact of, yes, the decisions led you to here, but without those decisions, you wouldn't be the person you are today, noticing and realizing and being aware of all those things that you did in the past. I also like what you said about it's really human, and perfectionism sometimes can feel really robotic.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's okay to be human and to accept things from the past, because you're now here. You could look at it with introspection and see it in a different way that you couldn't at that present time.
Yes, definitely. Taking space from the situation allows you more neutrality towards it and seeing both sides of that coin. I feel like ultimately, like, most of the time, if you're experiencing something where like you can't see that bright side, you usually just need a little bit of time to be able to not feel so emotionally charged towards the negative side, let some of that out, and then you can look at the positive side of how that may have brought you to a better life, even if it's literally the worst thing that could happen to somebody. I'm one of those people too. I really like introspection, and I like to look at even the worst case scenarios within my life as there's a sprinkle of positive to them, because they taught me to be more compassionate. They taught me to be more self-aware. They taught me whatever it is. And I just hope that for a lot of people. But I also know that, like, if somebody says that they're grateful for a time that they were assaulted or something, like, you sound crazy. You sound absolutely insane. And that's honestly something within mindset culture that does like a little bit confuse me, is when people say that they're like very, very grateful for this like negative time in life. That's something that I like get a little bit torn between head and heart, because I do believe, exactly as we're saying, you get brought to this place in your life where you're a more well-rounded version of yourself. But then I also think like there's a version of you that really hated that happening and to be grateful for it, I wonder, is that ever like kind of discrediting that version of you that was in so much pain, that
Yeah.
was allowed to be in pain. Like, if, let's say, for example, for you going through the court systems and everything, like, that's painful. For somebody to say that you should be experiencing anything other than fear and pain and loss of control, like, I don't know anybody who could go through that experience and not feel those feelings. So I'm just curious, do you have anything on that sort of topic?
Yeah. Like when you said that your point about someone getting assaulted, I feel like it can be looked at as strange. Oh, I'm grateful for that happening. But at the same time, everyone's journey is unique to them.
Very true.
So like maybe, well, this is just an example, but maybe that person was someone who exercised a lot of bad decisions. They
Mm-hmm.
went out to clubs every night. They drank a lot every night. They partied every night, and those decisions might have led them to that experience where they got assaulted. And maybe it led them to think, hey, maybe this isn't one of my passions in life. Maybe they discover a passion for medicine or entrepreneurship or something else that is more positive to their life. And suddenly that negative thing that anchored them and dragged them to the bottom of the ocean is now a lifeline that is taking them to their new destination.
Yeah,
And it happened through a negative experience, which in our brains doesn't really make sense, but it it goes deeper
it does.
into how they thought about themselves, the actions they took with themselves, and it goes all the way back to our original topic of self-talk, which is how you thought about yourself. Maybe she thought um, she's not pretty enough, so she goes and does all those actions that lead
Yeah,
to
like
those.
to seek attention from the wrong crowd or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So while I agree with you, I also have to we also have to remember that everyone's different and unique, and
Yeah.
there's so
You
many nuances.
you are very right. You're very, very right. And I think that maybe part of that sort of like confusion on my part is like, when, how do I phrase? I think the confusion for me comes from when there's not an awareness around the connectedness of your experience in your life. If you're not necessarily aware of like when I was a kid, I was alone a lot, and then now I'm more hyper independent, and then now that's why I have no friends, and like you can kind of see how one leads into the other thing.
Yeah.
I think when you look at, let's say, a tragedy in your life, and you just look at that tragedy, it's nothing but sad.
Yeah.
But then when you do have that perspective to step back to say, but that led to that, and that led to this wonderful thing, that's when you can actually have that perspective to say, I'm grateful for that negative time in my life. Yeah, I think like making connections, that leads back to like self-awareness as well. With like, and honestly, self-awareness, I think, without judgment of the circumstance. Like, and I think honestly, that's the difference between like being aware of yourself as an idea and being aware of yourself as a person. Yeah. Anyway, do you have anything to add before we move on to our next question?
Yeah. I feel like with the way our society is going, we're going very technological. We're almost becoming robotic. There's cybernetic enhancement soon. Yeah, I would just say give yourself the time and the room and the space to be human. It's not really something that is touched on very often, and we sort of have an affinity towards jockeying it all as mental health. Oh, I need a mental health day. But does anyone like go a little bit deeper than that, than just the buzzwords? Actually think about things that are going on in your life, reflect on, because at the end of the day, it's your life, your decisions affect your life. It doesn't affect anyone else, really.
Yeah, of course.
And yeah, give yourself that opportunity to be human and treat yourself the way you want to see yourself in the future. And yeah, you'll find good things. I promise. Tough times don't last. Tough people do.
I love that. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
How does the way that we speak to ourselves impact our relationship with the external world? We kind of touched on this a little bit, but is there a different angle we can tackle this question?
Yeah, a couple notes here. To sum it up, I guess, positive self-talk can motivate you to make healthy life choices, pursue goals, and engage in behaviors that align with your values, your goals, what you want to achieve. And then negative self-talk, it can contribute to self-sabotaging behaviors, procrastination, avoiding challenges, and it can act as a barrier to personal growth and achieving those things you want to achieve.
Absolutely. How does achieving these things that we want to achieve impact our relationship to the external world? So the outside world. Does that make sense?
Sorry, can you?
Yeah, that's okay.
rephrase it?
So the original question is, how does the way that we speak to ourselves impact our relationship to the external world? And you gave really great examples around like how we speak to ourselves can impact our relationship with ourselves in order to reach success and reach our goals. And that's fantastic. But I would really love to know if there's like an external benefit, like, yeah.
Okay. So I guess relating that personally to myself, one of the things I found is that when I'm more positive because of the positive self-talk, and I talk positivity into the world, they're more likely to speak positively back to me.
Yeah.
If I'm in a mood where, oh, I came into this podcast, I say, I don't want to be here really, but I'm here. You know, you're gonna react with similar emotions.
Yeah, I'm really,
we
let's get
came
this
in.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get this all over with. I want to go sleep. But we came in happy to see each other, happy to be in this podcast. We're happy to touch each other's lives and touch the lives of other people and chat. And it's been a great podcast, and
Thank you.
I'm happy to be part of it. So I get happy vibes back.
Yes, I love that so much. When you give happy vibes, you get happy vibes back.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that I would say for me in terms of like how my self-talk impacts my external world, very similarly, it would be in terms of relationships. So I've noticed that when I'm kinder with myself and more compassionate with myself in times of, I don't know, distress, discretion, like whatever it is that the other person has done, like if I'm more kind and positive with myself, I tend to be more kind and positive with them as well. So it tends to really impact my relationships for the better. Like, let's say in the past, like if I made a mistake, I would lose my shit on myself to be like, oh my God, you made a mistake. That's terrible. And then when my friend makes a mistake, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, I wouldn't have done that. That's pretty terrible that you did that. And like, nobody wants to be that person's friend. So
Yeah.
nowadays, when I make a mistake, I'm like, okay, that was very human of you. How can we learn from this? What can we take with us moving forward? And that's now how I approach my friends. And then they also have learned to be able to approach me that way. And it's just like a give and take cycle of being able to make mistakes, not be judged for them, and then be able to just have somebody to be able to look at your mistake very objectively to be like, okay, what can we do with this? Where can we go from here? And
Absolutely.
like that's just like because little like little Hannah was in a lot of friendships that were not very supportive, that didn't really know, my true heart. And now that I actually know my own true heart, I'm able to meet people who can also see my heart and I can see theirs. And I just think that that is pure magic. And I don't know why somebody would want to live life without being able to see their own heart and other people's heart as well. To me, that's the point of being human. So I really, really love what you're doing with your app, with your whole vibe. Thank you so much. I do have one more question before we wrap up this episode. Being in the thought leadership mindset space, is there one misconception about it that you would like to address with this interview?
Yeah. So thought leaders in the wellness space, they often boast about miracles of transformation and things coming into your life in an almost instant way. I
Yeah.
would argue that self-talk should go beyond mere positive affirmations and extend into action. Instead
Yeah.
of just saying, I will succeed, emphasize the importance of articulating specific plans, steps, strategies to turn positive intentions into tangible results.
Absolutely.
On that note as well, I've like when I first Googled affirmations and stuff like that, I would come up with, repeat this affirmation, I am good 20 times and you'll be good. And to me, it doesn't click
Yeah.
where one, it doesn't resonate with me. And second, what is repeating it 20 times in a row going to do for me in a
Like
few
if
days when this
yeah.
thought comes up again?
Yeah.
It's they label it as, oh, if you just got to do this one thing and it'll change. But we know that change is more elusive than that. It
Yeah.
takes not only that, but it also takes that aligned action, doing the homework, the thought homework of figuring out all those aligned action pieces that align with what you want. Even figuring out what you want is homework as well.
Absolutely.
And there's all these other things that no one really talks about, but it's crucial to that instant transformation that they're boasting in the first place. So it's
Absolutely.
like, it feels like they're giving you one little tidbit, which is important, but they're not giving you the whole picture.
Yeah.
And you need that whole picture in order to
It's like they give you
change
the chapter,
yourself.
not the novel.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I really, really love that. Some things that came to my mind is like in terms of affirmation, we can tell ourselves all freaking day long, I'm good, I'm good. But your mind will not believe it unless you have evidence. And then
Mhm.
that's where taking action comes in. Taking
Absolutely.
action proves to yourself, like, okay, yes, I am good because XYZ. And
Yes.
especially when you're a creative person, when you're a sensitive person, you have such a strong tether to the words in your head. So if you've been telling yourself you're not good for your entire life, saying it 20 times, like you said, is going to do absolutely nothing, because you're smarter than that. And your brain is even smarter than like what you think it is. Like your brain likes to trick you all the time because it's good at it.
Yeah.
And another thing that I want to touch on as well is what you mentioned about creating long-term change within your life, and how a lot of people within this industry like to sell short-term fixes. And I'm a firm believer that short-term solutions breed short-term fixes. Like a long-term plan is what's actually going to breed a long-term change. And I think that that's really magical. And I think that, like, even if you're at ground zero, even if you have no idea where to start in terms of looking at your mindset, looking at the way that you speak to yourself is step one. And it's probably one of the most important, because it feeds into every other aspect of your life in the way that you just engage with your external environment. So I just think that everything that you're doing is really fantastic. And I really hope you all of the best in what you're doing, because I think that everybody needs something in their pocket to be able to help them feel good, like on a deep level of like mentally, physically, spiritually feeling good. Now, before we leave off today, is there anything lastly that you would like to add? And also, if you could let us know where people can find you.
Yeah. First, I want to take the time to thank you for having me on as a guest.
No problem.
And I had an amazing time, and I hope we have more chats like this in the future.
I'd love to.
Yeah. My message to the world is that I'm living proof that you can change your life around by changing the way you speak to yourself. And for now, the world can find us at avra.global, AVRA.global.
Beauty. I love that so much. Is there anything lastly that you would like to add about AVRA, about yourself? Anything that was maybe only brushed over throughout this episode that you'd like to give more detail?
Yeah, the last point we were talking about, where you had mentioned the affirmations, I just had thought about it related to how we were talking about someone who doesn't eat healthy.
Mm-hmm.
If you say I eat healthy, but then you go and have a bag of chips, then you're not doing the aligned action to your
Mm-hmm.
affirmation. Repeating it 20 times is not gonna do anything really. But if you sort of reframe it, to me, it's a lot about how you reframe it. If you reframe it into, I make healthy choices about my eating, or something similar to that, and then
Mm-hmm.
you go and have some grapes. Sure, you're not going to see an overnight change, but eating fruit is a healthier alternative than having chips.
Of course.
So you're already living that intention, and you're speaking it out into the world, you're doing it into the world, and over time, you'll see the results.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I really, really love that sort of final analogy. I think that it really sums up like what affirmations are here to do, because it's not like a quick fix. It's not something where you're going to be like, I make healthy choices, and then you wake up always making healthy choices. There's going to be a learning curve, and there's going to be lots of opportunity for you to hone in on that self-talk, because you're going to make affirmations and you're going to go against them sometimes. You might still choose chips once in a while. That's okay. But
Yeah.
that also requires you to define what healthy choices means to you. For me, I've had to look at healthy choices as, what dimension of my health am I choosing around? Am I choosing this for my mental health because chips make me feel good? Or am I choosing this for my physical health because I want to feel good physically? And sometimes those are contradicting and you have to pick one. But that doesn't mean that you have to always look down on yourself for eating chips, let's say, even if you're working on making healthier choices.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Amazing. This was a really, really great chat. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being here. Thank you, audience, for being here listening. If you have any questions for me or Brandon, please reach out. Brandon, as he mentioned, is on Instagram at avra.global. And then, my Instagram as well. It's cofellow. If anybody has anything to add, anything they disagreed with, anything at all, please come let us know. Brandon, are you open to receive feedback as well?
Absolutely.
Awesome. So we're both on the same page. Please come let us know. And also, as a final reminder, remember to download AVRA if you're looking for a self-affirmation app. I use it myself. It's super duper great. And yeah, that's everything for today. I'll catch you in my conclusion.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here with me, and if you enjoyed today's topic, now is a great moment to subscribe. If you have any feedback about today's topic, please reach out to my social channels. I help creative entrepreneurs market their creations in a way that feels authentic. I have a self-study marketing program that covers basic and advanced marketing concepts with 9 modules and activity sheets. I also sell content creation templates to help you manage your social media with unlimited content creation ideas. And I also offer one-on-one marketing consulting services. Check out my socials and my website to learn more. If you're interested in working with me, please reach out via email. So that's social media if you're reaching out for my podcast, and email if you're reaching out for business. All relevant contact links are in the description, and thanks again for listening. Cheers for now. That was pretty good.